What are your overall thoughts on the Kurt character and how his storyline went?
I thought his storyline went very well. There's obviously things that could have went better, things that could have went a lot worse. It's like my idea for Kurt was I wanted to make one of the most disgusting, deplorable people on the face of the planet. Like someone that you know that you're going to hate as soon as you meet him. But I also want him to be smart and kind of cunning and manipulative. Actually, that's something a lot of my psycho characters have in common is they're all very manipulative. And so with him, so I was like, okay, what do I want to do for his backstory? Because this is where I start going through my process where I was like, okay, let's see here. He's going to be a psychopath. He's going to kill people for all these things. I was looking up the difference between psychopath and sociopath. I can't remember the difference. I know one of them knows what they're doing is wrong, and then the other one can't remember. I can't remember which is which though. But I was like, okay, a lot of these people, they're not born like that. They have something happen to them that makes them that way. And so I was like, okay, boom, easy. Let's throw the easy button at this. Abused as a child by his parents. So, his dad would beat him. His mom would like emotionally torment him. His dad would pretty much would have a dog on a leash that would be like snarling and snapping at him like inches away from his face and his throat and his arms and all this kind of stuff, which kind of also put into a thing where if you ever heard Kurt talk, especially with Mackenzie or anything, he's always like, I'm going to kill that dog if you ever bring that dog in here.
Yeah,
like, don't you do that,
was
blah,
great.
blah, blah. And so that was kind of like that. So I went through all that stuff. And then I was like, okay, well, what did he get? Because obviously this was with Kurt, he was a lifer. So he was flown in from another prison. And so I was like, okay, well, what crimes could he have committed? I'm like, I don't want to make it this big, extravagant, like, oh, he's killed like a dozen, 2 dozen, 100, 1,000 people, blah, blah, blah. I want to kind of bring it back down to the realistic kind of level. So I was like, okay, let's see here. So that's where I went to, I created a couple instances from his teen years of things that he would do that wasn't too bad. Obviously, he would go after animals when he was younger because, a lot of serial killers usually start off with animals. But the first really big thing that had him do was he was working at a hospital. He spent some time in a mental asylum, and also he spent some time in juvie and also another prison, but he was released from the prison, and he ended up getting his name changed or some fake IDs and stuff, was working at the hospital as a janitor. And he saw this lady sitting down on a chair outside the ICU, and she was kind of crying, and he kind of comes up and just starts making friends with her and kind of like talking to her, seeing like what's going on, what's wrong with her, like who's she there to see. And her husband was in a really bad car accident. He was in the ICU. So he continued to make friends with her. And it got to the point where they were getting pretty close. And he was like, again, he was manipulating her. And he was like getting very close to her, especially after all her friends and family and his friends and family stopped coming to visit him in the ICU. So this is like weeks or a couple months that have like gone by in this time. And so he finally gets to the point where they're almost like flirting and stuff now at this point here. So he's like, what can I do to really mess with her? I know I'm going to kill her husband. Then I'm going to be her shoulder to cry on. And then I'm going to use her to get my own way for other things. So one night at like 3 a.m, when he was doing one of his janitor shifts, he took a large gauge needle, filled it with air, put it into his IV, put the air into his IV, gave him embolism, I think, or something. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, sounds right.
Her husband dies. He sits there, becomes the shoulder for, becomes the ear for her to talk to, the shoulder for her to cry on. And, they eventually she even brings him to her husband's funeral. And it turns into a thing where they pretty much get together. He has her let him live with her, where after a while, because she's going through all this trauma and stuff like that, he starts feeding her all these lies and starts getting her hooked on drugs. And then eventually he gets it where she's kind of tied up in the basement where he would do whatever to her and all that kind of stuff. And pretty much leave her down there with a collar around her neck that's chained to the wall. And for him, the big thing was a family member finally decided to reach out and try to see what was going on. Hadn't heard from her in a while. And the cop, when he was out going to get some groceries or whatever, he came back and there's cop cars all over the yard, all around the house and everything. Thankfully for him, he was able to siphon a lot of money away from her into his own bank accounts so that he could kind of like live. Because again, that's what these kind of people do. They're like parasites pretty much. And so at that point, he's like, fuck, I need to get away because they obviously found her chained up in the basement. So that's where he drove somewhere else. He ended up renting out a room above this dive bar, and that's where he goes down into there, and that's where he ends up meeting up with this lady who is there drinking her sorrows away. He starts talking to her, and she's this small town detective, pretty much. Like she's dealt with a lot of murders and all those kinds of things, and she's like seen a lot of the horrible stuff that the world has to offer. And again, he does the same thing. He gets into her head. He gets her hooked on drugs. He does all this other stuff. But when he gets arrested, this is again several months down the road. He's in the basement, and he had he wanted to try something different, something exotic. So what he wanted to do was he saw the. Have you ever seen those body museums where there's people that are like bodies that are like freeze dried and they have them like separated into segments and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I don't think so, but I can imagine it.
Yeah, so there's those kinds. So I was like, what can we do for this? And that's where I was like, I know. So pretty much had it where he was going to try to separate everything from her. So he had her pretty much on a table in the basement. There's another table beside him. And what he wanted to do was he wanted to remove her skeleton, put her skeleton on one side, and then take her skin and do something with her skin, like probably like put it up on a wall type thing and all this stuff, and have her muscles and then her organs in a different kind of thing. But all the organs and everything would all be like sewn together and stuff, almost like a meat puzzle type thing. And so when the cops end up showing up, he's like part way through this process where he's like sewing her organs together. And so of course, the cops are disgusted. That's where he gets arrested, sent to jail in New York somewhere. There's a maximum security jail up in the state of New York. I can't remember what it's called. But anyways, from there, that's where he was inside the prison. Of course, because his DNA was all over the place in the first place, he gets charged with both crimes. He gets convicted. He gets charged and he gets found guilty and all those kinds of things. And then inside the prison, that's where he gets his next victim. There's a therapist who, she dressed up extra. She put on makeup, would wear perfume, would dress up nice, She would get the attention of the guards and also the inmates, like she's trying to rile them up almost type thing. And so he didn't like that all that much. And so he went and he took her beauty away from her they were having a session one day and he had hit a razor blade in the sole of a shoe, took it out and slashed up her face, kind of like the Joker type thing, so that, even though she might still be a very attractive woman, now for herself, it's like she's kind of tearing herself down because she now has this big scar on her face and stuff like that. And so, he would do things like that and all those kinds of things until he ended up getting shipped to Los Santos.
Yeah, no, I really love the backstory for Kurt and how it's so detailed. The best thing was whenever you would meet new people, Kurt would always tell that story about how he, was trying to make a meat puzzle, and then people would be like, what are you talking about? And then you'd start going into more detail, and it would just really freak people out. So, yeah. I think what was the detail is that Kurt cut with a cop, he cut her face off and tried to put it on a mannequin so that she
that's
could
right.
watch
Actually,
what was happening.
Exactly. Thank you. I completely forgot about that. So yeah, with that cop that he was, dating and manipulating, when he was cutting her up, what he did was he cut her face off and put it on the mannequin and like stapled it there because, he wanted her to watch what he was doing. Yeah, I forgot about that. Thank you. And you know what? You could actually, I'm not sure if you have already, but if you go into the DOC incident reports, you can find there's a lot of reports on that too.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've read that far back on that actually. Yeah, I should check it out.
Yeah, there's a lot of decent. Same thing with the Stephen Alexander stuff. There's a lot of stuff in that too, especially from like Mackenzie and that, because I got to fuck with Mackenzie so much, which was so much fun. She was so good at being fucked with.
Yeah, I was wondering, what was it like playing as Kurt when you were working with like Mike and Haley, with like Jasper and Apricity in the prison? Because I thought you guys had really like good chemistry and like really good storylines together.
So when it comes to Haley, I had met her on my Stephen Alexander character, the cult leader, for the Brandy Miller thing. Because, again, just like with Kurt, Stephen was a phone guy. He was calling everyone all the time, just making small chat, trying to, make connections and, people that he can get into with. So I was able to role play with Haley for a little bit during that time. So, of course, when Apricity came around, like I'd already known Haley pretty decent when Apricity had been put up to jail. That was a great opportunity. And for Mike, oh my God, Mike, hands down, is the best serial killer anyone has ever played, like the amount of work that he puts into his stuff, like his videos, his audio things were just absolutely next level. Like it was absolutely mind blowing because during 2.0, I had seen some of the Jasper Saxon stuff, and actually on my therapist character, I got a video of it on my Twitch, I think, of my psychologist going and talking with Jasper in the prison and having a little talk with him. And I think I threw him for a loop because he was expecting one thing, but the way that I did my therapy stuff was very different. I was like, please let me go back and meet him again because I had so much fun with that, but it never ended up happening. So when I saw that Jasper was in prison here, I was like, oh my God, because before the lifer applications opened up, I had Tim Wright already made, and
Yeah.
Tim Wright had done his interview. He did his onboarding. He did one shift before that stuff kind of popped up, and because the way that they did it, where they didn't want DOC people to have lifers for very good reasons, because they're even if you didn't attend to meta, there'd be a good way to meta stuff there, and so they didn't want to have that possible headache. And so that's what I was like, okay, I'm gonna have Tim go back to Canada, go make up some excuse for that. And I put in my application for Kurt. And then, yeah. So when I saw Jasper, I was like, yes. And then when I started to get to interact with him, oh my God, it was such a blessing. I had so much fun with Mike. Like I said, Mike is the single greatest serial killer I think anyone has done for RP stuff, period, in any kind of sense of the word. Being able to RP with him is great. And just getting to know Mike afterwards was absolutely fantastic too. The guy is absolutely amazing. He's a very humble person. He's a lot of fun. And even though we have different kind of creative ideas with things, it's nice seeing how someone that's kind of on the same kind of level, how his brain works for doing certain things in a different way than I would even think of. And it was just so much fun just to get to RP with him too. And the two of them together, like, I mean, we had it where we were the three amigos, I think we called ourselves.
Yes.
And I mean, it was so much fun because I mean, Haley reminds me of like, Haley's kind of like a Kiwo Light, where she can do just about any kind of character that I think of. But whenever I think of Haley, I see a lot of similarities between her and Kiwo. I mean, they're both British, but just kind of like with the way that they're able to RP, because they both kind of fit into a lot of kind of situations, and is very just kind of nice. And of course with Apricity, I mean, it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah. That was so impressive that Apricity character and storyline just came out of like an RP jam, which was probably meant to be a throwaway character, and then yeah, it just seemed to become into something a lot bigger and yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I felt the exact same way. Like, I feel bad because I never did any of the RP jams, but watching them as they're happening, I'm like, God, I have so many ideas I could have done with this. It would have been fantastic. But yeah, like I can't agree more. Like her with that, her with Apricity, where it's just going to be a throwaway character. But then when they got tossed into prison with no real kind of rhyme or reason, and she took that and ran with it. It was absolutely fantastic. What she did with that was just great. And then the bond that her and Jasper had together. And also, again, and this is where it comes down to, where never have anything set in stone. Because obviously, like, Mike had plans for Jasper, but after Apricity kind of came around, and the way that they were acting, it ended up becoming almost like siblings, and they saw each other as brother and sister. And Apricity kind of reminded him of his sister. It was one of those things where it changed kind of his story. Like it turned it from what he thought it was going to be, and molded it into something else. And it was so much fun to watch that happen from both of them.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see that Jasper kind of a bit of a change and try to actually look at rehabilitation and going through like, psychology meetings and stuff. So yeah, it was really different. Okay, so I might talk about Tim next, because that's probably one of the characters I know the most. Yeah, how do you feel about Tim Wright and how his story went?
I loved it. I loved playing Tim. Tim, again, so because, again, a lot of the characters I play are like psychos, or, people that aren't fully right in the head. I don't want to do it like one psycho character right to a next psycho character. I need one for myself, because playing these characters, as much fun as it is exhausting. It is so mentally exhausting. Like, there would be days where I would sit there, and even if it's just like 3 hours, I would end up just going back upstairs, laying on my couch, and just be fried for like the next like day or two. Like, I would just be completely just like zapped out. And so I need, and also, again, kind of like what I was going on with before too, where you can't have, the same kind of stuff happening all the time. So after after Steven Alexander got blown up on the salt flats by the attack helicopter, I was like, okay, let's shift gears a little bit here. And I think that's where I created my Josh character. No, that's not where I created Josh. I think I was just having a couple little fun characters. Then I was like, okay, let's I want to do this DOC thing now, so I can give back a little bit. So let's go ahead and do DOC, and then we'll do that for the next few months type thing. And then obviously the Kurt stuff came around, so that kind of went to the side. But no, I love the story with Tim. Tim again has a tragic backstory. Surprise Pikachu face, I know, but yeah, like he obviously blown up in Afghanistan, met his wife, was one of the trauma surgeons in Germany working on him. A year after he gets sent back home, she reaches out to him by email. They start to talk a lot. The next year he gets medically released from the military. He goes down to the States. They are dating pretty seriously at that point. They get married. And then again, it would have been 3 years ago today. Would have been they're driving to go meet up with a friend. He goes to text a friend because his friend's like, hey, like, where are you guys? Like, hey, be there in 5 type thing. Of course, he was texting and driving. Accident happens. His wife dies. He goes through a year of just drinking himself into the ground, hating himself. Her family hating him. His family hating, or there wasn't really much of his family at that point, anyways. All the friends and stuff hating him. So he's just going down this very self-destructive kind of way. Before obviously seeing all the advertisements like, hey, come help rebuild San Andreas, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Okay, sure. Comes in, decides to try to be a doctor at first. So he does the residency program at the doctors. 2 things kind of made me kind of move on from that. One is there wasn't a lot of doctors that were kind of coming on duty, so I couldn't really get him on duty all that much. And so I was sitting there, I was like, maybe I'll need to switch it up. And then I also saw that there was some DOC people around, and I still want to do stuff with the DOC. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go have a talk with this person because he made friends with Georgia Goodman, who was one of the doctors that he met when he first got hired on as a resident at the hospital. And he had a talk with her. He was like, hey, like, this is kind of what I'm thinking. Like, I enjoy helping people, but I have that feeling that it's going to get to the point one day where the thoughts about my wife and all that stuff kind of coming back while I'm in surgery potentially, and it might end up getting someone killed, and I don't want to do that. So I think I'm going to step down. And she, gave him a really good pep talk and kind of got him to really think about things. And that's where he went. And he's like, you know what, you're right. I'm going to quit the doctors. I'm going to go and try to become a DOC. Went to become DOC. And then after that lasted about 2 weeks before the Life for Apps opened up. And then obviously after Kurt died, after Permit Kurt, I was like, okay, let's go back and let's do Tim, because I don't want to leave this unfinished. I want to again give back to the DOC because the DOC have been there so much for me with a lot of my RP stuff. And so I went back and was like, yeah, let's go do that. And then again, like, obviously I had done DOC before on NoPixel for a little bit, so I had a lot of the knowledge in there. So I was flying through all the checklists and everything like that. I was having a lot of fun getting promoted up the ranks, meeting a lot of interesting people, building the different relationships, obviously, like, with Anna, the different kinds of things, like he really did not like some of the DOC, and he kind of made it known, even got to a point of conflict at one point, which had to get squashed by Castle early on.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Was that with Elena?
Yeah, that was with Elena. And even though he never let it go because she didn't let it go, like, she would still say certain things about George from time to time. And he was just like, nope, I am having none of that. And so even though he was playing very professional, if there's a way that he could, like, fuck her over, he would still go and do that. And then, and obviously, like, making friends with so many different fucking criminals. Like, that was insane. Like, the criminals liking Tim more than some of the DOC. I was like, this is insane. But yeah, just going and having fun with that, just seeing where it was going. And then every now and then, like, put in little things there. Like, there was the one day where I had him get absolutely horrendously drunk, and then he falls and he does something, and he gets sent to the hospital. And that's where Jay comes in and leaves a very angry letter in his pockets and stuff, which was absolutely hilarious. And he was like, don't you be doing this shit. If you do this shit again, I will fucking kill you myself, and all these kinds of things. Just being very Jay-ish, which was great. And then, yeah. And then obviously the fear stuff too. That was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing that.
That was intense. Did you have any thoughts about how the fear stuff played out? Like, do you wish you played it more safe with Tim potentially so he didn't end up getting fired, or are you just really happy with how dramatic the whole story was?
The only reason that Tim got fired is because of Tim. It had nothing to do with fear at all. Like, obviously,
Right.
like, it did have something to do with fear, but it wasn't because of, fear. It was because of Tim. Because Tim would go and talk to the psychologist and he would actually share about some of his feelings. And some of those feelings, again, like, because of the conversations that they had, and also after she had attacked him, tortured him, and all that stuff. And again, it's one of those things, like, again, like character development. Like, there's what she ended up doing to him was one, after she stabbed him, she because of the conversations that they had and how she really kind of got into his head, she ended up using his stories against him, because on one side of his chest she carved in "be there in 5," which is a reference to, the last thing he texted someone before his wife died. And then on the other side of his chest she carved in "fixed her in 5," because that was our fifth conversation that we had had, Fear and Tim. And she saw Tim as someone who's always trying to save everyone. And so she was like, yeah, this is for, yeah, you're a fixer type person. So that's why she would do that. So every time he would look in the mirror and he would see those scars, he would be reminded of her, even after she was dead. And so then obviously after that, she went and she tore open his left wrist and cut up a bunch of the ligaments and the tendons and stuff, which again would never fully heal. And she knew that. And so every time that he would feel that little bit of pain in his hand or that numbness, again, it'd be another reference to her. And then again, that's where she cut his lip, she cut herself, smeared the blood on her lips, kissed him on the lips. So it was like a blood on blood, lip on lip kind of kiss. And again, so every time he would maybe kiss someone or maybe do something. And each of these three things would always go and work together in stuff where it'd be like, one thing would remind him of the other thing, which would then remind him of the other thing. So it would always be a constant spiral where he was always being tortured by her, even after she had died. And that kind of ended up being what happened with Tim. And so when he would open up with the Sykes, like they were like, that was definitely an inappropriate relationship. And of course, Tim was trying to be very like, listen, that's not what happened. Okay, it's like I wasn't sneaking her off anywhere, even though he was, because he would take her into cell block 6 and have these conversations with her and lock the two of them in there alone. And when he was talking, even in the report of when she attacked him, if you go back and read that report, you'll see
Yeah, I
that
read that.
you'll see that he says he's in the yard outside of cell block 5 when they were doing all that stuff, and he had searched her and all these things. He didn't search her. He never searched her. Just like they weren't standing outside of cell block 5 when he was looking at the DOC things. They were inside cell block 5. And that's where he kept taking out his phone and looking at it. And that's when she stabbed him. Not, hey, I need to take a minute, and he walks away. He's doing it right there in front of her. And that's
Yeah.
why she ended up stabbing him and then obviously going on with other things. And so that's why Tim got fired. Tim got fired not because of anyone else. Tim got fired because of Tim being, and of course, and that was something that I worked into there, because I was like, you know what, this is going to be a possibility for something that was going to happen. Like I'm down for just about any kind of RP, and whether it's conflict RP, because I had some things planned for a couple of the doctors after all that stuff happened too, and then obviously where I was planning on taking Tim afterwards as well.
Okay. Is that in getting more treatment from the doctors or something else?
Oh no, he was like going to have people go after the doctors.
Or to attack them?
Yeah, because they took away his job.
Oh, wow.
They took away, because especially because he opened up to them and they got him fired. He was not happy. Like, he didn't have anything, so he was spiraling. And especially after the doctors weren't like reaching out to him after he got fired, like what was supposed to happen. He was like, no, like this is fucked. Which is also why he decided what he was going to do with the sirens if he was able to, because he knew that Castle wanted him back, and so he was going to go and attempt to get his job back, even if he wasn't able to get that appointment with the Sykes. And he was going to quite literally start feeding information to the sirens. He was going to sneak weapons into the prison for them if they wanted to stab someone. He was even going to tell them where certain cops were if they're off on their own, just kind of doing something, or help them get away from chases, or even if they're selling weed somewhere, give them a heads up if cops were coming down to the area that they were in.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
like
that would've been
Tim
interesting.
had pretty much was like, I'm going scorched earth at this point. Like, as long as people that I care about don't get hurt, I don't care what happens to anybody else. Like, he was, because in Tim's mind, this was something that he was saying a lot, is he was kind of starting to believe that he actually died in Afghanistan. and everything that had happened was him living in hell. Like he was sitting there, he's like, I met this amazing woman. She died. Oh, I came to this state to help out. Well, look at this. I go and I try to help out all this stuff. I get fired. I get tortured by this psychopath. I have all this other stuff happen. I have people looking down at me, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I'm living in hell. So it's like, you know what? He's like, enough play nice guy. I'm just going to go full scorched earth pretty much.
Do you still see Tim as a good guy, or do you just see him as he's just gone bad now and is not coming back?
Well, he's good, but again, it's like with a lot of people in these kinds of situations, it's like, even though this is a very big extreme, it's like the Joker from the DC universe, like between Joker and Batman and all that stuff. There's a one line that the Joker is saying to a lot of people where it's like, where he was explaining what happened to him, why he turned into the Joker. And he's like, everyone, it takes one bad day to take you from being an angel to going and becoming a demon. And it only takes that one bad day. And so I had built up these things with a lot of things where it's like Tim has had many bad days, and it's like he just had enough of it, and he's like, nope, fuck it, I'm done kind of trying to be good. I've been trying to be good for so long and it isn't working, so fuck it, let's just go and just do something. I want to get some enjoyment out of life type thing.
Speaking of enjoyment, how was the betrayal show with Tim?
Oh, it was so much fun. I highly recommend people go and do it. I was a little bit worried at first because myself and also Tim didn't know a lot of people. Like Tim had a very small group of people that he would know outside of criminals and stuff like that. And even though he did know some people that were there, he didn't know a lot of people. So he was a little, like, I played him a little bit cautious. I wanted to be a traitor right off the hop, but they didn't pick Tim, which I was like, God damn it. Because I would have done it a lot differently than I did play it. But I had a lot of blast. The people that put in the work to the betrayal did such a fantastic job. It was so much fun. The games are fun. Everyone, like the cameramen were amazing. Everyone who's playing like one of the people on the show, they were absolutely amazing. I had so much fun with that. That's actually one thing I hope if they do end up releasing like the videos of it, I kind of want to go and watch that because like it was fun. Like even though Tim got kind of sussed out after the first thing for a very weird kind of reason, but I was like, damn it.
I found that funny.
I was like, motherfuckers. I was like, just goddamn Polly. Just because of Polly. I swear to God. Like, I could have.
Yeah, Polly really latched onto Tim and was like, this guy's sus.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm innocent though. I'm like, what is going on? But no, it was so much fun. Like, the interaction was so good. Like, you have people from because you have a bunch of criminals in there. You obviously have a doctor. I mean, you have Bryce in there. You have all these other people that are in there. And it was just, I think everyone just worked off really well off of each other.
And Eddie in there was great.
Yeah, God, Eddie is fucking hilarious. Oh, God, I fucking love Eddie.
All those selfies, and then I thought that was really smart because he had an excuse to pull out his phone all the time, like doing all those photos, and then later he becomes a traitor.
He became a traitor the same day that I became a traitor too.
Oh, right.
I was like, because I thought he would have been a traitor right off the hop. I was like, oh no. I was like, okay, nice.
Yeah. No, it was great to watch that betrayal stuff. They should put out a videos of that. They did that for the first season. They put all these episodes together. They even did showings of it in the Last Call Cafe, I think, that people would go watch.
Nice. Yeah, I would love to see like what they edit together because it was amazing. I had so much fun with all that.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, another loose end with Tim. He was doing that whole payphone list of getting all the numbers of payphones around the state. Did you end up sending that to PD, or like what happened with that?
So didn't end up giving it to PD. I won't spoil it, but he ended up giving it to a criminal group.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, that was like 15 hours of work. That was a lot of work of going from payphone to payphone and then marking down because what I would do is in the contact list, obviously I would have the phone number and I would put the exact location of where that payphone was. Like if it was a street corner, I would say what corner of the street, like was it in the northeast corner, was it in the southeast corner? Like where was it? Like what was it right beside? Like that way you could look at the phone and be like, that's exactly where that payphone is. And they'd be able to go there and find who's calling them on it. Because obviously, a lot of people just use burner phones. But especially with some things, like when I did the stuff with Kurt when I was outside the prison, obviously I used my phone a lot because I wanted that, because I knew that they had subpoena. and that they'd be able to track text messages and who I was phoning and all this kind of stuff. But I would still use payphones from time to time. And it's one of those things where it's like, if people use payphones and this person, because originally, again, it was supposed to go to that CID person. And if they're like, oh, fuck, this is where it is, it'd be one way to catch criminals a little bit more too.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked the idea of getting all the payphone info. It's funny, I had Anna work in the food truck around Legion Square, and I was a bit bored, so I started collecting the payphone numbers around the Legion Square. I thought another idea to do with that is just to prank call people by ringing the payphones and seeing who picks up and just say something stupid.
Very true too. If you go to some very popular areas, that's very true.
So, I was still talking through character stuff. You talked a bit about Stephen Alexander, but is there anything else you wanted to bring up with that, or maybe favorite parts about things that happened during his storyline?
Well, so the big thing with Stephen, and this is going to go into how he got caught, how he ended up getting, because if certain things didn't happen, I think he would have gotten away with it. I think he would have gotten away with a lot of the charges. So the big thing with Stephen. So when Stephen came, the way that Stephen came to the city was I had it. This is the backstory. This is the very last bit of backstory before I started playing him in the thing was he had some of his followers torture him. He wanted to look like he had been tortured, that he had been abused. That way, when he washes up on shore or when he was found, people would think that he was a victim, because no one's really going to look at victims for when horrible things kind of start happening. So I went and I had him all kind of, I think, what was it? He had a bunch of needle marks in his arm. I'm pretty sure I had it where they're actually giving him heroin and stuff like that. His feet were all kind of cut up because, again, that's right, because when he got found, he was walking along the railroad tracks up near the power station when he got found. And so he had all these torture things done. And anyways, one of the cops I knew from actually NoPixel 2.0, and she was the one that was talking with him. And I sent her DM. I'm like, hey, would you like to have something interesting that would really kind of get you involved with the way that some of this stuff is going? She's like, okay, sure. So on a GTARP, which was a RP server that took place back in the 80s, that's when I made, the first kind of cult leader character off of Samuel, but Samuel wasn't a cult leader. He was just a part of the cult. That was Joseph Alexander. And like all the audio journals that you heard of Steve and stuff, Joseph had written everything down in a journal. And so I said, because obviously it takes place in the same state, I was like, how about I just have you find this book. It got a little weird because we had a bit of a miscommunication on how she's going to get her hands on that stuff. And so that was a little bit weird. But anyways, got her the journal, which was 30, 40, I think 50 pages of journal notes pretty much that talked about this cult and, what this one guy's thing was. So she had that book. She had that journal. And anyway, so I have him go and he's doing his stuff and that. I have him trying to be just trying to be a normal kind of therapist without actually getting into the job type thing, until he was thinking, he's like, you know what? I should go work at the hospital, because where's a better way to get victims than working at a hospital, being a professional? But before he kind of got to that part, he had a talk with that officer again, where she called him up and it's she's picking out a couple things. And he didn't like it all that much. And, what was it? Oh, no, that's right. There was another doctor, Dr. Green. Dr. Green is someone that he went to go see, but she kind of just brushed him off. And the way that she was, he really didn't like it. So after I had a meeting with that cop, with that detective, I was sitting there, I was like, do I want to try to get into some conflict RP? Conflict RP might be fun. So maybe I'm going to start something with this doctor. So what I decided to do was I contacted Dr. Hayabusa, so Dr. Q, and said, hey, I have an issue with one of your doctors. Do you mind if we come and talk? If I come over and talk? And she was like, sure. And Danielle, who plays Dr. Q, I was so lucky that I went and actually sent that text out to her from Stephen, because if I hadn't, again, Stephen probably could have gotten away with a lot of stuff. But Danielle loves to take notes. She will take notes of everything. I wish that she would have saved some of the VODs, because the notes that she took were extreme. Anyways, they have a talk. They have a little bit of a... They end up talking 3 times at first, and they really kind of get into it with each other, where he's telling her everything about the cult from back in the day, like what he was into, because he was telling her that he got away from the cult like a few like 5-6 years ago type thing. But Dr. January was one of the psychs that he was talking to in the hospital when he was injured, and the cop had given him a copy of that journal, and he was like, whoa, he's not as innocent as he seems. Listen to a lot of this stuff. This has like some very similarities. So that started getting things kind of very similar. Anyways, it got to the point where he was like, I would love to work for the hospital, but I don't want to push it. I don't want to push it. It wasn't until Dr. Q was like, hey, you like doing this stuff. Do you want to just work at the hospital and be a psychologist and, work here as a therapist? And of course, Steven is like just the big devil horns curling up in his hair. He's like, I would love to, thank you very much. Because, for her, the way that she was explaining it is it's the best way to be able to keep track of people by knowing where they are. And by allowing him to work there, she'd be able to keep an eye on him type thing, even though he's able to do a lot of horrible stuff after that. But anyways, so going through all that stuff, and then also the next big thing that really kind of shaped part of the thing again was another person that was able to help bury Stephen was Mercy. So Stephen was a little bit of a loner. He didn't really go out and talk face to face with other doctors and stuff. He didn't really want to show his hand, but he's sitting there. He saw that, Mercy was a psychologist. So he's like, you know what? Let's get to know our fellow psychologist. So I was like, hey, do you mind if we go up and talk? And we both kind of sat there and we just went back and forth a whole bunch and this kind of stuff. And she saw something in him where she was like, ooh, something is off here. And anyways, so because of obviously Q and with Mercy, they're both very, very, very smart people. And they're able to really kind of see patterns and things like that. They were able to kind of pick up on some stuff with Steven. And then obviously, went through and had a lot of fun, just mentally like manipulating people, getting people to do certain little things that they normally wouldn't do. And then talking some people into, first of all, making some actual friends for like a cover, because he was trying to contact a lot of people in government things, like I think it was the deputy mayor, I think he had made friends with, as like someone to be like, just someone to keep close, someone that can like vouch for him type thing if people start poking their noses. He really tried to get a hold of some like he wanted to get a hold of like the heads of departments, because if he could manipulate them, they might be able to help him get more people into his flock type thing. Like he was sitting there trying to build this flock up. And then obviously he went and did all his torturing stuff, because his torture stuff was it was a very extreme thing. So he would convince them that they needed to go through their trial, that they need to go through these 5 trials and all this kind of stuff, so that they could like, feel good about themselves. Because a lot of people that go to therapy, especially, characters for the GTA stuff, they're not in a very good headspace. Things are going wrong. Things aren't going right. So he tries to be that friend. He tries to be that shoulder. He tries to be that thing where people can feel comfortable around. So when people like that start telling you certain things, it's you go like, okay, you know what? Maybe this can be good. And then you're like, you know what? In order for you to really kind of feel good, you need to realize how strong you were. So in order to realize how strong you are, you need to go through something horrible, because the more horrible stuff you go through, the stronger you can become. And that's the kind of story that he would spin to kind of get them into this stuff. And so like for a lot of these people, what he would do is he would go and he would take them, and he would have them where he was first is he would make them he'd make them starve for like 3 days. He'd be like, you're going fast. I don't want you to eat any food. I don't want you to drink any water. I will send you a text, or I will let you know if I want you to take like a sip of water. From time to time, I might let you have like a lemon, like a piece of a lemon to eat type thing, to keep you like nourished a little bit. And the big thing with that was to make them a little bit weaker, because then he would tell them to go for a walk in bare feet, so that their feet would get all torn up by, the rocks and the sticks and the sharp objects that are on the ground. Pretty much, again, trying to see if they can push themselves past this limit, because if they can prove that they can do this, then they can prove that they'd be stronger, and also for him, they'd be like one more hook like in towards him. And so once they would go through that, if they survived that, he would go and pick them up. He would then bring them to a secluded area where he would have them tied up. He would have them blindfolded. He would be drugging them. And he would tape headphones to their ears. When he's sitting there and being very nice to them, like talking to them very nice and being very supportive, he would let them see him and he'd be very kind of nice, and there'd be an Amazing Grace song that would be playing. And so every time that they would see him, they would think of this very nice, soft kind of tone, this very soft sound, him being very nice and all this stuff. But when it went to, time for them to, feel the pain, what he would do is he would put a picture of Dr. Green in front of them and he wouldn't let them see him. And that's where he would be pulling at fingernails. He would be carving them up a little bit, and then all this other stuff. And then when he was done with the torture part of it, he would give them a little bit of drugs like morphine and stuff. Oh, sorry. And also when he's torturing them, he'd also give them psilocybin, so like magic mushrooms, so that their brain was a little bit more, so they would be looking at her face and recognizing that she's the one that's hurting them. She's the one that's making them feel all this pain. And so he'd go into that. And at the same time, with all this stuff too, he would do things at all the crime scenes. He would leave little clues that would be pointing towards Dr. Green. Like I had it where there would be red, like strands of red synthetic hair on like a doorknob or on the ground. I would go out and take like a woman's heel shoe print in a muddy spot, like just one, not like a whole bunch of them, just one. So it's like someone was trying to plant evidence type thing. But it could, if police were just looking at what they could see, they're like, oh my God, this is a female because there's a female shoe print here. Oh my God, it's someone with a wig because it's red synthetic hair. And so, and then also while putting the idea in their head as they're being tortured that she's the one that's doing this to them, not him. And then, those kinds of things. And then, just escalate from there and all that stuff. And it was just so much fun. I had so much fun doing that. It was such a great story, and everyone involved was so good. And again, one of my favorite parts was, him getting interrogated. Him getting interrogated by Veronica Wilson was so much fun. The lawyers were great. Like the lawyers I remember watching the lawyers stream, and the way that Stephen was talking to him in the cells was a complete shift from the way he was talking when he was in being interrogated. Like you could see the manipulation that he's trying to do on people and stuff like that. And just the way that he was reacting was so much good. Like is the reaction that people were giving that was just like the icing on the cake type thing. And then obviously him getting to jail, being a phone guy, mentally torturing Mackenzie, because Mackenzie, her best friend, was actually his last victim, and she found her. She found her tied to a tree so if you go on YouTube and you look up boots, walking up and down again, it is, if you sit there and you listen to that on repeat, it is a very, like, it hits you, it gets you. It's a very kind of traumatizing kind of song, and it will fuck with you. Anyway, so Mackenzie found her there, found her kind of beaten up a little bit, and with that song playing and all this stuff. In one of the reports that Stephen had access to, because it's about him, Mackenzie's name was in there. So as the one that found her, that she was her best friend. And so he would go and would be tormenting her. He'd sit there and be just first he would try to tell her, the sob story of his past and all those kinds of things. And then he would get into the whole thing of when she wasn't buying it, and she would tell him to stop and saying that she's good, she would never do anything. He decided to try to poke at her, try to break her down, try to make her act, try to make her lash out at him. And so he would say all these things. He would do these things to really get under her skin. He would call up her best friend when she was recovered and stuff like that, which again, Mackenzie being a DOC person, like, it started putting her down, started making her angry and all this stuff. And it made for some great internal conflict stuff with the prison and some of the story stuff that's going on there. And then obviously, him being executed at the end was just fucking fantastic. It was so much fun. I did not see that coming at all, but it was absolutely great. And the trial too, like the trial was amazing. It was a long trial. Okay. It was 6 hours, and then the sentencing was like another 4 hours, and then the execution. But it was so good. Yeah,
I'm sorry I missed that stuff. Sounds pretty interesting. But I guess there are some videos of it, or probably some other recordings. Anyway, didn't he get blown up with a rocket launcher or something from a helicopter? The execution.
So the way that they did it, and the thing that I love about this is the DOC had no idea that this was going to happen, because of course in an RP server, a lot of times what I've seen always done is people just get put up against a wall and shot. And of course, I know with Onyx, they want to, they want to make it entertaining for everyone, for people to get, something out of it, which I'm all for. I was like, this is great. I mean, it's not realistic, but I think it's absolutely hilarious, and I think it's great. And so anyway, so I thought he was just going to get shot. So he was brought out to the salt flats where there's already the crowd out there waiting. And he's out there and they're talking and talking. And anyways, then Joy, Supreme Justice Joy, gets up there. And he goes off about how he was contacted by the Canadian ambassador, and he even rattled off the name. It was saying all this stuff about how the Canadian government wanted him back in Canada and all this stuff. And it made it sound like he was actually going to be just deported back to Canada. And he was like, so you're going to walk across the salt flats back towards where there's the water still. You're going to get on a boat over there, and they're going to take you back to Canada. As soon as he said that, I'm like, something's going to happen. I thought it was going to be like a sniper was going to shoot him. But anyways, what happened was everyone was pissed too, because again, the DOC had no idea this was going to happen. No one had. I think there's 3 people in total. And so he took off his shoes because again, Joy was like, you got to do, what you made others do. And so he took off his shoes and started walking across the salt flats. And that's where I'm just kind of like waiting for it. But then someone from the crowd comes running out to try to like beat him and ends up actually punching him. Someone from the DOC had to actually shoot her down. And they had to get her out of there because in comes the Apache helicopter and just lights him up with rockets and just blows him to smithereens. And it was absolutely hilarious.
It does sound pretty entertaining.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun. Like, I mean, doing the stuff with Kurt, doing the stuff with Kurt when he was outside the prison, it was so much fun. I was a sweaty mess because I was on edge the entire time. There's literally one part where I was talking with Casanova on the phone underneath a house on the beach up near the resort where they used to have the casino at. And I was standing underneath one of the houses on the beach, and a guy comes down the stairs with his arms crossed. And I'm like, did he fucking hear me? Did he hear my voice? Does he know who I am? He had no idea who I was. He's like, get the fuck off my property. I'm going to stick my dogs on you. And I was just like, all right, bye. And then I was like, wow, that could have been over real quick. But no, all that stuff was so much fun. All those things, just being chased is just, it's a blast.
Yeah, I really like that system you have with putting those alerts up to be like, oh, there's black bank transactions at this location and people trying to track that down.
I took that from someone else. Back
That's
on No
right.
Pixel,
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
So back on No Pixel 2.0, when I was doing my psychologist character, the Lost had gotten into this huge thing with the PD, and the Lost all got rounded up except for Catherine Scratch and I think 2 other people. And I was off the server at this point, but the head of the psych department was like, DM'd me, but it was like a DM or it was like a message to Jonathan Wright, who is Tim's cousin, saying like, hey, Kat and Patty are in a little bit of a bind. They might be able to use your help. And I was like, okay. So I came back to the server. I got back on. And anyways, I was with Catherine Scratch and also watching her stream. So she actually came up with the idea where it was going to be an escalating thing day by day to make it enjoyable for the PD as well, where the first day they weren't really going to be able to find anything on her, like her phones and stuff. She wouldn't have anything. But on the second day, if someone called her or she called someone, then what would happen is once the conversation was over, she would put in a 311, because with the 311s, it wouldn't give you an exact area. It would give you it wouldn't tell you anywhere where the person is calling or texting from. So she would do the /311. She would give a general area of where she was. So she'd be like Vinewood Hills. Or Catherine Scratch's phone was just pinged making a call in the Vinewood Hills. That way the cops would have a place to be able to go look. And then the next day, it would get like a much tighter bubble. And there would be different things like bank pings and stuff like that would be going off. That she would again do the /me, which would be like an OOC type or like a 311 type thing. That way the cops would be able to do that. And each day would get harder and harder for her. So that's where I took that from, is from her. So I could put that into there because it is a fantastic idea. Because it gives the cops something to do. That way they're not just blindly going around being like, oh, gee, is this person even around right now? Or what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. Like, it actually gives them something to do. And I love that. I love doing that. I'm really glad I saw it because I don't know if I would have been able to come with that on my own.
Yeah, it's good when you can see what other people do and grab ideas off of that. So your Josh Hart character, Yeah, he was a guy who was obsessed with skinwalkers, right? And you had him as a, I don't know, what was your aim with his character, or what were your thoughts around him?
So Josh Hart was originally supposed to be a perma character for that was
right.
the initial idea. Whenever I make a character for someone else to kill, I don't want it to be like this person who no one's ever talked to is just dead. It's like, okay, why? So I wanted to give him like some stuff. So I came up with this huge, skinwalker story and all this other stuff, and then I'd have him go around and talk to people and tell them about the skinwalkers. And if you go and look at his Twinsta posts, like all the Twinsta posts going back to like February and all this kind of stuff of all these different things, that way when he would be found to have been dead, it would have been like, holy crap, like this guy was actually like he was actually someone, like he was around, like I knew who he was, all those kinds of things. But then obviously Molly got the Molly stuff came to a close where she got caught. So I was like, okay, so I kind of put him on the back burner. But then I would play him very rarely, just if I needed some downtime, something away from other stuff. And then obviously Lex, who plays Mackenzie Blake, and Pirate, who plays Cora, they had their feral characters, and of course they're looking for things because they want to have some consequences. So they're looking for people that could actually do something. Like, yeah, no, I'll definitely do something with Josh so that Josh could you guys can kill Josh, because the original plan was Josh was going to die. But then it was like, but then I think we were all kind of talking. It was like, it'd be good if Josh survived. That way there would be someone that could kind of point at them and stuff like that and give a little bit more detail. Pirate. Sorry, going back to Mike. So when Mike was doing a lot of things with Molly, like he would go into this website type thing. I can't remember what it was, but he would put all these things. So
yeah, it's called MasterCloud.
No. So not even.
Oh, you're
that.
thinking about something else. Oh, okay.
So,
no, the Genially,
yes,
I think.
Yeah, that thing. So where it's like you can put down a link. If you put in the link, you can like it'll give you the scene that he puts in again, because like talking with him again, which makes him so fucking good at this stuff, is he was putting in like 40 hours a week, like OOC, into a lot of this stuff. And so, Pirate, who's also very great at this stuff, was talking with Mike, and he told her how he was doing it. So she started doing that too, so she could put down all these scenes so that cops could find all these different pictures and all these things and all these things that you couldn't actually do in game because there's just no way to really mechanically do it and really give like evidence for the cops to kind of come after. Because when you're playing these kind of characters, I didn't say this earlier, probably should have. One of the biggest and most important things to do is to make sure you leave a trail. Make sure you put evidence down that people can collect, put things down that the cops can find. Because if you just kill someone and drop their body, it'd be like, okay, so there's a body here. What's around? Like, you can't just leave a blank space. You need to have scenes down. You need to have things that will point them in a general direction at least, and some things where they can even help kind of connect the dots. And this is why we also do like different phone calls with things to make sure that if the police do their job, they'll be able to track someone down eventually. Maybe not right away, but they'll be able to put enough kind of pieces together to be able to find who was doing things. And so Pirate was all over that, so she was doing that stuff, and it's like, we could use an actual witness, someone who gets attacked but survives, and then kind of is able to give the police more stuff. And so that's the route went with.
Yeah, no, it was really good. No, I enjoyed when he was like testifying against Marionetta. That was quite amusing.
I was going to sit there and call the Judge Dupree or Dupree, just say the thing that she didn't want to say, just to really make her kind of look at him and threaten to strike him. But I was also tired, and I was like, I don't want to get too much into it. But I was like, I'll still make an ass of myself a little bit just to make it entertaining, but not go too hard at it.
Yeah, you made a Crim character that you played with Pirate's Nessa character for a while. What was his name again? I think it was like James Oliver or something.
Yeah, James Oliver, James Harper, I think. Yeah, that's a short one. That one didn't go through too much because there's some things going on with Pirate, and then I had some things going on, and then we did it. I think twice we interacted, but it didn't really come nothing really came too much from that. That was quite literally just going to be here's an idiot who is just here just to cause Pirate's character some headaches and make her just like want to just murder this kid, but she can't because she promised her buddy that she would take care of his kid if he ever ended up dying. And so it's going to be like a Crim that would just kind of like learn along the ropes, but be an absolute idiot at it, like not do anything right, like probably get caught, turn right away, be like, oh, it was her, it was this, it was them, this is what happened, and like just really giving up everything right away type thing to see how long he would last before someone would kill him.
Have you done much of the crim side of things, or focusing on
nothing.
like gang type stuff, or no?
Like the gang type stuff isn't something that is a really big draw for me. I find it entertaining a bit, but not for me to do it. Like I enjoy watching some other people do it, but it's not my kind of RP. And, there's so many people doing it where I'm just like, there's a lot of other people that are doing it and doing a lot better. I'll let them do it, and I'll focus on like my little niche thing that I do, my psychopath stuff and that.
Yeah, I think I would like to try it sometime, just because it could be fun to go around and actually speed properly rather than just trying to sneakily run red lights now and then.
Yeah. And
I thought it would also be fun to mess with the DOC on the other side as well, or at least give them some conversation.
well, exactly. And it's also good to like when you're playing a character like a cop or a doctor or a DOC or a judge or a lawyer, have another character that you can just have fun with. Because if you're always kind of doing it, that's how you kind of get burnt out. And sooner or later, it might come to a point where you're just not really enjoying yourself anymore, where you're like, so kind of branching out and doing something fun, even if it's just like doing some stupid crim stuff, like, yeah, go for it. Have the fun with it. And yeah.
Are there any other characters that you want to talk about, or that you wish you'd played more or got more attention?
Not really. I mean, I'm pretty happy with how a lot of my stories went. I mean, like I said, I guess one kind of thing is because I know we all get to know different people on the servers and stuff, and a lot of us do like to use some of the same people. Like even for a lot of my stories, there are a couple similar threads between a bunch of the different characters with certain other characters that I kind of get involved with, and that's just because I feel very comfortable around these people and it's fun. But something that I always try to do, which is why all my characters have been phone guys, is I want to try to bring other people into stories, especially people who might not have really had that kind of exposure for something before. I want to try to grab maybe someone who's never really been involved with something like that, and try to bring them in on the story. Because you never know. Because with some people, maybe they're just sitting there and they're just like waiting for something to happen, but they don't know what to do. And they're kind of like hemming and hawing. They're like, oh, maybe I should do this. But if you go and you bring them into your story, then maybe they can get ideas and kind of do things. And also, who knows, maybe you'll make their day, and it'll be like, oh my God, this person, that I've been watching for this stuff brought me into that story, and it's been fun. It's like, it's again, the only way to win role play is to make sure everyone around you is enjoying it. And if you can bring someone else in who maybe not would have been into an event on their own, and they enjoy it, hey, that's a bonus. You've maybe wow, English. Maybe you've made someone's day.
Yeah, I'm trying to get better at that in game. So I feel like it's sometimes easy just to get focused on what you're doing in front of you. And yeah, I do need to reach out to people more. I've done it a little bit with Anna. For example, I was like texting or trying to talk to people about Tim and be like, oh, I'm worried about Tim. You're friends with him. Is he okay? Can you check on him? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you're doing it too, like with this conspiracy club stuff. Like you took the bus out for them. What was it, last weekend or the weekend before? Like, I mean, that's great. And kind of going at that, that's a good way to kind of branch out and maybe try hanging out with some of those people outside too. And yeah, just get out of your normal kind of grind and just, try out some different things. Even some things that, it's like, yes, Anna would do. Like, don't do something that Anna would never do, but do something that she would do. And then just take a stab at it.
Yeah. I guess I've dabbled in a couple of things like the conspiracy club and doing the food truck, that whole karaoke night. That was a bit different. Yeah. Okay. Do you have a favorite storyline that you're involved with? But I don't know, it seems like you've had a lot of really good ones, so it's probably hard to say like, oh, this one's the best or something.
Like again, like each of the storylines, they all had something, like just usually something a little bit different, and they're all enjoyable, sometimes in different ways, but also sometimes in same ways. I mean, for example, like the Jesse Skid thing, it was just great playing that kind of a broken character who wants to do good but isn't, and then just the sheer involvement, again, especially when Kiwo came around, like when she entered the story, like it exploded. It became something I never thought it could have been. And just that first experience of that first big story working out like that was amazing. And then, doing the stuff with Jonathan Wright, who's my therapist character, like just doing that stuff, that was fun. Like doing the Father Dollar circular thing, that was interesting because it was with a group that I'd never really RP'd with before. And it was something completely different and it was fun. And then obviously get into the cult stuff. I mean, the cult stuff is always amazing. Whether I was doing the Samuel stuff and I got to stab Ash and then all this other stuff that kind of went with that, or doing the stuff in He's with the cult stuff there, or even last year when I did the cult stuff, or I mean the Kurt. I mean, it's all enjoyable. It's all, I would never be able to put like this is my favorite. It would be like I would be able to pick very enjoyable things from all the stories I think I've done.